So why are they called as missionary journeys?
From one place to different places.
Then it's just only a journey, no? Why are they called as missionary journeys? Because mission is happening there, right? It's a simple thing, no? Isn't it? Yes or no? Yes, it's a simple thing. So since mission is happening, mission means the gospel. Okay, so the gospel is being spread. So that's why they are called as missionary journey. So if you look into the second missionary journey once again, where is Paul now? He was at Thessalonica, right? So after Thessalonica, he moved to Berea, and from Berea next to Athens. So in Athens, you have a beautiful sermon that Paul gives, and then you also have an unknown God over there. So Paul takes that opportunity to deliver the gospel. And after that, what happened? Paul moved where? Corinth. Okay. Could you please have a look at here? You see this bright green? Okay. This is called as Achaia, and Achaia's capital is Corinth. Okay. So Paul moved from Athens to Corinth, and then he is there for some quite a good amount of time, and then he does the ministry over there. Okay, so let's get into the Corinthians. So now, Paul, could you please look into book of Acts chapter 18? Yeah.
పౌలు అదే వృత్తి గలవాడు కనుక వారితో కాపురం ఉండెను. వారు కలిసి పని చేయుచుండిరి. అతడు ప్రతి విశ్రాంతి దినమున సమాజ మందిరంలో ప్రకటించుచు యూదులను గ్రీకు దేశస్థులను ఒప్పించుచుండెను.
Could you please look at the time that Paul stayed there in Corinth? How long was he there? Could you look there? You can't? It's there in 18th, book of Acts chapter 18. How long was Paul there in Corinth? That's what exactly I'm looking. Who is that? Yeah. 18 months Paul stays there. Yeah. You don't see Paul actually lingering or staying back in a place for that amount of time. 18 months, 1.5 years staying in one place, and Paul had actually amazing ministry there in the city of Corinth. Now please pay attention. The name Corinth, it's a very bad name. It's a very bad name, means very bad name. Corinth is a synonym for prostitution. Okay? Or adultery and fornication. So it's basically a synonym. Corinth is basically the name of the city is Corinth, but the idea behind Corinth that people had, the moment somebody mentions Corinth, what do you remember? Only these things: prostitution, adultery, and fornication. Okay, there is one phrase to Corinthianize. To Corinthianize means to live a loose life. To live a morally loose life. That means no morals. Okay? No morals. Could you please look here once again? Actually, this green, this red line, it's covering there, but yeah. Okay, maybe you can see now. You see here, this small part. Okay, this entire thing is actually Corinth. Okay, this green, bright green, but there is only one single thing here. Chala chinniga untadi. It's a piece of land. It's actually more like an island, but just only you have a little bit of land connecting here. So Paul moves from Athens to Corinth here. Is that this is something very, very important for Corinth. That small neck-like thing, no, that very little bit of land that connects this piece of land to this piece of land. You know what happens is that, for example, you are here, okay. Let's say that you are outside of this map, okay. So if you have to move here, you have to actually come along this way. But this very dangerous route of travel. This very dangerous route of travel. So there was a lot of business and trade that's going on outside of this map. So people come here because they would like to come this side. Okay, they would like to come this side. So now what happens is that if they come this way, this is a very dangerous route. Very dangerous means very dangerous route that they can even lose life. There is a saying that those who forget their life can go this way. Okay, that means you never have the assurance that you will make it. That means you will never know whether you will reach there or not, because it's a very dangerous zone of traveling this side. Okay, so what happens is that people, for trade reasons, rather than going through this dangerous route, what they would do is that they will come here. They will come here, okay. But when they come here, for example, a great ship is there, okay, thousands of containers. So what they do is that they come here to Acrocorinth or this area, and what they would do is that they would unload all the luggage. They would unload all the luggage, and they will take the luggage manually on the carts, and they will take it to the other end of the sea. Okay, you see here you have the water here. Okay, so they will unload here, and then they will reload here, rather than going through this. No, so this land, this small piece of land, was actually the main thing that actually brought so much of revenue, because rather than going around, they would like to take this, because you never know you will live or not if you go along that way. So they'll come here and they will unload all their luggage, containers and containers, and they will take these manually on the trucks or something, and they will again reload on a new ship. Okay, so what happens is that there were so many slaves and there were so many people who were coming there for business and all these things. There is a saying, if you stand long enough on that, if you stand here long enough, you can pretty much meet everybody in the world. That's how the saying, I do not know whether that is true or not, but in the history, if you stand here long enough, you will basically meet everybody in the world, because this piece of land is so crucial, because many people are afraid to go around, and this is very important for the transport. Okay, shipping and all these things. So the trade business was very important in those days. So if you stand here long enough, the idea is that everybody goes through, because that is how the business is done. Okay, so you cannot really escape from this unless you want to die. So you just go only through this land. So what happens is that so many people come here through this, and so every culture, every land, people, they go through that one. So now it became like a kind of hub. Everybody, they bring all kinds of culture, they bring all kinds of ideas, and so eventually what happened was that Corinth has become a place of prostitution, and Corinth has got this, if I am correct, you have the Aphrodite. Aphrodite goddess. Aphrodite devata. ikkada కొండ ఉంటుంది అన్నమాట, ఒక పర్వతం ఉంటుంది. ఆ కొండ పైన ఆఫ్రోడైట్ అనే గాడెస్కి ఒక టెంపుల్ ఉందన్నమాట. ఆ టెంపుల్లో 1000 మంది ఆడపిల్లలు ఉంటారు. 1000 మంది ఆడపిల్లలు ఉంటారు. వీళ్ళంతా కూడా ఆఫ్రోడైట్ దేవతకి అంకితం అన్నమాట. వీళ్ళంతా ఈ 1000 మంది ఆడపిల్లలు కూడా ఆ దేవాలయానికి అంకితం అనమాట. సో ఎవరు వచ్చినా కానీ వాళ్ళు adultery and fornication completely free a service to God or goddess. Okay, so that has become a great attraction. That has become a great attraction for this Corinthian place. So that's why everybody likes to come to that place. Everybody likes to come to that place. So what happens? That there is a ship over here, and you have the luggage to take from here to this. Okay, so you are a master and you have servants doing this. Okay, so now what do? You have nothing to do. So what do you know? What do you do now? You go to the temple, you enjoy and you come back. So that is how every man that comes to Corinth, they will just make a visit to the temple, because there are 1,000 women available for adultery and fornication on the temple, at the temple, completely free. Okay, you are not charged, because they are given over like as a service unto the goddess of Aphrodite. Okay, so it's really filthy, means really filthy. You cannot find another place that evil than Corinth. That is the kind of life. That's why it is said to Corinth. Corinth, the moment you say Corinth, it's basically a synonym for prostitution and fornication, adultery and fornication. Okay, so to live like a Corinthian, what does that mean? He is a Corinthian, means it doesn't mean that he is coming from Corinthian, but rather he has no morals in his life, completely loose living. Okay, she is a Corinthian. That means she is given over to prostitution, or he is given over to prostitution. So that's the kind of thing that even Aristotle, Plato, from those days also, they all had the idea that they all referred to Corinth only in that sense. Okay, so filthy place means filthy place. You understand, Paul going there to that place to begin the ministry, and you could really appreciate the effort that Paul puts in into the church of Corinth. That amazing results are actually there. Okay, amazing results are there. There is something that you would learn so much from the Corinthian church or from the Pauline theology in relation to Corinthian church, is that there are people who are actually coming, all these believers who are part of the Corinthian church were actually practicing these kind of things before. And they are part of the church. And you know what Paul calls them in the first few epistles? First few verses? He calls them as Parashuddhulu antudu. Yeah. He calls them actually he calls them saints. Okay. In most of the cases, to be is basically added in the English translations. Okay, but it's not there in the Greek. Okay, so they were actually called saints, even though they were actually having that kind of past. And you know, like if you look into Corinthians chapter 5, there is one person who is committing, ఒకతను తన you can understand what kind of life is happening in Corinth, and that too in the church. He is a believer and he is keeping his father's wife. Okay, so that is a kind of context actually that Paul goes into to do the ministry. Okay, so it's actually a beautiful story of Paul visiting this church and doing the ministry over there. So now what happens that he's there for 18 months. After that, Paul again goes back to Antioch. He finishes his second missionary journey and then he goes back, and then the third missionary journey, if you can, is it stuck? Yeah, it's not moving. Anyway, so in the third missionary journey, again Paul begins from Antioch and he goes in the same places, and then he comes back to Ephesus. Okay, he comes back to Ephesus, and when Paul was ministering there in Ephesus, he writes a letter to Corinthian church. How many letters Apostle Paul wrote to Corinthian church? 2 letters. In reality, how many he wrote?
3 letters.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There are those who say 2, there are those who say 3, there are those who say 4, there are those who say 5. Yeah. It depends on how you look at the epistles. Okay, so there are people who go even with the idea that Paul wrote 5 epistles to them. Yes. Okay, so there are some who do suggest like Paul wrote 5 epistles, but we have no way of confirming that. Okay, so what we know is that Paul wrote number of epistles, definitely. Okay, so more than 2 he wrote, at least 3 or 4 he wrote, but they are lost. They are lost. So you understand that there are so many epistles that Paul wrote were not included in the New Testament. Do you know that? There are some epistles which Paul wrote are not included in the New Testament. పౌలు కొన్ని పత్రికలు రాశాడు, అవి న్యూ టెస్టమెంట్లో ఇంక్లూడ్ చేయబడలేదు, తెలుసా? ఓకే, సో అలాంటివి చాలా చాలా పుస్తకాలు ఉన్నాయి. ఓకే, సో వై ఆర్ దే నాట్ ఇంక్లూడెడ్? Not canonized. Okay, so it is not the author who is inspired. You need to understand when it comes to canonization. So we don't say the author is inspired, but rather the work is inspired. Okay, so not everything that Paul wrote is inspired. Only certain epistles that he wrote are inspired. So that is how it's sorted out. Okay, yeah. Any questions from here? From Corinthian background? Okay, so Acro-Corinth. Acro-Corinth means did you hear this word Acro-Corinth? Okay, it's like the higher part of Corinth. So you have the mountain, right? So on the mountain you have Corinthian people. So it's referred to that temple. Okay, it's referred to that high peak in Corinth. It's called as Acro-Corinth. So how do you feel?
Very happy, sir.
Very happy, huh? So let's get into the content of the first Corinthian epistle. What are some things that you notice in 1 Corinthians? Some issues. Okay, so that's I think the overarching theme that covers the entire epistle, that they should not live that loose life, but rather they live holy life. Spiritual gift, yeah, that comes at the end of the epistle. Good. So you have the spiritual gifts. Yeah. That is very important to mention because the context requires that. Yeah. So, yeah, what are some things that you've noticed in the first few chapters? Immorality. Okay, so that begins from chapter 5. Okay, so immorality. Before immorality, there is. Huh? Yeah, so what is with that? The divisions in the church. Okay? Divisions in the church. Yeah. Would you like to take a break? Yeah, please go ahead and take.